And welcome to the Obsolete Gamer Show. I am Jay Ilarock, and I am happy to be here today with a true pioneer. I am here with the original PSP, Patrick Scott Patterson. This is a person that I want to talk to for a long time now. You've seen an interview with him before at E3, but I want to have him in here to talk about a variety of topics because this is a person that can talk about a variety of topics. And he is a true multimedia personality. And if you don't know what that means that he can do it all. That means TV, that means film, writing, articles. Scott, thanks for coming on the show and talking with us.
Hey, no, I appreciate the big talk up too, man. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Hey, I mean, look, I think that that's one of the things that it makes you stand out just in life is to be able to have that ability to do a lot of things, and especially like when it comes to just making a career in anything. But to have that ability to see different angles, especially when you're talking about gaming. Because one of the things that I see that you talk to people about is having that ability to see various sides. Because a lot of people will look at gaming and just think, oh, this is just for kids. Or lately you'll see people try to portray it as either being violent or nonsensical. And I like how you'll show all these different aspects, either how it's a serious business or how you have to look at, how gamers need to actually take a more activist stand or look at being real consumers where people need to take us seriously and not just attack each other. So, you take a serious stand on a lot of topics that a lot of gamers, really should pay attention to. And I see that, some gamers do. And I really appreciate that, you cover that not only in your articles, but, when you do appearances and when you show up in films and on television programs and web streams.
Yeah, I mean, video gaming, people still act like it's in its infancy. Some people even say that sometimes, and it's like, to me, I guess it depends on where you look at it. Compared to, let's say, television or movies or sports or whatever, yeah, it is. But I mean, video games, the first consumer video games came out in the early 70s, and the first big hits came out in the late 1970s, and they've been with us ever since in some way, shape, or form. So I don't really consider that an infancy anymore. I think we've kind of reached a point, or should have reached a point with video gaming, where there's a larger understanding of what it is, what it can be, what it means to pop culture, and really just society in general. Because that's the point in time wherein people started to realize that about films. That's the point in time when people started to realize that about television. Actually, it was even shorter period of time than that. But for some reason, video games still seems to be stuck in this one little, like almost like an island that some people claim to protect. And I mean, sometimes some of the arguments within that little island or that little bubble, I mean, it's worse than Washington, man. In the meantime, the industry has grown to this gigantic thing. It's the biggest entertainment industry in the world. It makes more money. I mean, a one-hit game will make more money than the majority of the box office hits of that entire year. And yet people are still trying to act like it's this little niche thing and that these little things inside of it are important. And I think they're missing what's on the outside. They're missing the fact that there's more people who play video games who don't call themselves gamers than there are people who call themselves gamers now. I mean, and it doesn't make those people any less of a gamer. If they're into Call of Duty and Madden every year, they're into playing things on their iPad or their iPhone or their Android, great. They are just as much gamers as anybody else. Even if they think E3 is what you call out when you're playing a game of Battleship, they're still video gamers. They're still video game consumers. They're still people that are part of this overall big thing. And, it's one of the things that I'm fortunate enough to have been around this long enough and to be able to look at it from some different aspects to try and be able to do that. I mean, I talk to TV producers. I talked to a radio DJ here locally recently, one of the biggest stations in the area, morning show. And she wants to have video gaming stuff on the show. Her producer does not, because her producer's idea of video gaming is still that it's this little niche kiddie thing. And, I get to see that side of it and get to see how people outside of the gaming bubble see it. And it's not good. And it's up to us to change that. And especially like this past week and a half, yeah, not only are people not changing that, but they're kind of painting probably one of the big examples as to why people outside of that don't want to take gaming seriously.
Now, that's the thing. Where do you think that this came from? Because, a lot of times, people see that where gaming started, it started like in the colleges, where you saw people playing around, with different equipments, and they came up with, like the Pong early systems and stuff like that. So a lot of, gamers start out, yes, it was male dominated, but it came mainly from people who were already considered adults. A lot of the early gamers weren't children. I know they ended up trying to market it to kids, and then you had the whole revolution where they had the battle between educational software and mixing it, and then the whole home console systems. So I understand where they tried to push it more towards kids. But do you think that that was where you actually had that divide where they had to push everything towards making it for children, and that's where we kind of lost that making it seem adult, and then we lost it to where we can't bring it back to make it more mainstream now?
Well, I don't like the word can't. I definitely think I think it's actually already there. It's getting people both inside and outside of gaming to actually look at it and realize that you don't get the sales figures of a Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto 5 if something is a niche thing. You just can't. Those numbers, there's just not enough hardcore, inside that little bubble to generate those kind of sales. But you're right. Video games started. They started in the college campuses. A bunch of hacks and and tokers making the first games, and bringing up consumers. And the first, big video game hits actually were in bars and bowling alleys and, places where kids didn't go. And then you had the early 80s boom. And I was a young kid, and I got hooked on video games. And it was kind of hard not to. They were everywhere. Probably, maybe even in some cases, more literally everywhere than they are now. You couldn't go into a business without arcade games being there. You couldn't turn on a TV without home console commercials playing. You couldn't pick up a magazine or a newspaper without this stuff being in there. But even then, like you said, it wasn't just kids. I mean, yeah, we had our Chuck E. Cheese and we had that sort of stuff, but every arcade, every place I went to is people of all ages, all demographics. The only time I can ever think of it being a kid's toy legitimately for a while was when the NES got hot. The average age then, even then though, was mid-teens. And of course, those mid-teens grew into adults pretty quickly. And it's been like this for a while. I mean, I think a big part of it is just kind of getting people to look at it. And that's kind of the basis of what I do, because I looked around several years ago and was like, I think I just watched one of these, video games of the devil like newscasts or whatever, and they had 3 or 4 experts on, and none of them were video game players. They were all psychology experts and parent group spokespeople and, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, why is there nobody that they go to that, they talk to about this that actually understands what video games actually are and can speak to this? And looking around, the only conclusion I could come to is the fact that nobody was trying to be that person. No one was putting themselves out there as that person. There are people that were putting themselves out there as experts, but only within the confines of what qualifies as video gaming, and not so much outside of that. And so it's like, if no one else is going to do it, I will. I'm as qualified as anyone else anyway. I've been experiencing this stuff from multiple angles for over 30 years as it is. So I'll take a shot. I'll try to be this guy. I've got experience talking in front of people. I've got experience on TV cameras. I've got experience behind microphones. And I know my stuff. And but every day, every single day, people don't see this. People who follow me on social media and stuff, they don't see this stuff. This stuff is behind the scenes. Every single day, I'm bugging somebody in a media or radio, newspapers, whatever, to be like, hey guys, there's this whole other side of this. Actually, there's this whole other 4/5 of this you're not even looking at. Here it is. And if you don't see what I'm pointing at, I'm happy to guide you, or I'm happy to tell you other people that can guide you. And the biggest trick is just getting people to just pull their head out of the sand and realize that this is more than it is.
And sadly, it looks like it's almost a script, because if you look, I found that you just watch enough television shows, you'll even see, like, when you watch, people play the game. Now, obviously, how production value works. They're not really playing the game. They're just holding the controller. But even the way and how they usually play the games, they're just mashing buttons and their eyes look all wild. And even something like Big Bang Theory or something like that, which is a popular show, I understand it's a comedy, but the way they portray it, you know, to a lot of people, they'll look at this almost as if this is how all gamers are. And yes, you'll watch a documentary or you'll even go and see live evidence and you will see some of the stereotype, right? And believe me, as a black man, I understand sometimes the stereotype, you will find the stereotype, but that does not mean that it's everybody, especially with so many types of gamers. That's like back in the day, like we were talking about. Yes, it started out with a lot of males, but nowadays female gamers are huge. Just like there's a lot more minorities in gaming, and the gamer type has changed. And it seems as though the narrative of what type of gamer has changed. And like you said, you go out there and you can have the side of the gamer that, like, you have the world record, that you've played all these games and you've done the gamer side, but at the same time you can go and you can show, hey, that doesn't mean that I have all these negative stereotypes that everyone wants to portray. But it seems like people just don't want to get away from that negative stereotype. And maybe if they do showcase a gamer, the producer wants to bring on that stereotype because they
Yeah.
figure, hey, that's what the public wants to see. That's the only thing they'll accept.
No, you're right about that. I mean, again, that's something that I came up with when I in some people's eyes controversially, I don't know why, kind of packaged myself. I don't have that right now. I haven't shaved. I'm not wearing the sunglasses because the screen reflects in them and it looks kind of funny. But that's the whole point. It's like, I some of that comes from within gaming, and I'm not knocking anybody with this or whatever, but if you look carefully at how I put myself out there, I don't use words like geek culture. I don't use words like nerd culture. I don't wear glasses with no lenses in them and try to play to that. I try to look like, I look more like somebody that's going to be there to kick your ass and scream at you than, drink a couple of beers or whatever while doing so than I do a typical video gamer. And that's by design. That's by design. It's, a look that's going to stand out and draw attention to what I have to say. And it's been working. But almost like the exact opposite. It's like I kind of literally was like, well, what am I going to do for like my look or whatever to kind of package this and get people to look at what I actually have to say as to what's going to be the vehicle. And I kind of looked at, I love Nathan Barnett's work, but I kind of looked at his Keith Apicary character and tried to do everything that was the exact opposite of that. And because that stereotype is very much there. And what you say is very much accurate too, because sure enough, there are people in the entertainment field that do want to feed to that do want to go that way, that do want to look at it that way. And even when they don't, there's still a little bit of that bias. I could think of, I was fortunate enough last year, the local ABC affiliate did have me out to do a counterpoint to a child psychology expert. Grand Theft Auto 5 was coming out, and everybody was going all, Maud Flanders about it, oh, who will save the children type of thing. And, bless them, they actually were like, well, there's two sides to this. But, of course, her lower thirds got all the big, PhD, this and that, college, whatever. And underneath mine, they didn't put the tagline I asked them to put. They just put reviews video games. Which is funny, because I rarely do that, by the way. Because there's a million people a second doing that. But I just thought that was funny. It's like they just kind of, he reviews video games. It's like, no, I'm a personality that speaks on this. I'm an expert on this. I'm not just some guy that sits down in mom's basement and reviews the new Madden like nobody else is doing that. I'll review Madden NFL 15 right now. It's Madden. There you go. That's my entire review. If you played Madden, that's it. It's Madden. There's no reason to write 1,500 words describing what that means. That's not what I do, but that's still their perception of what a guy like me does.
As far as, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I like, what in the beginning. I mean, obviously, I'd seen what you've done as far as the records on like Twin Galaxies and things like that. And when I saw your page, and then I saw the articles that you had, I saw some of the reviews but then I later on I also saw your editorials, which I liked reading, and then I saw the different profiles that you did, not only of gamers but different developers. And I wanted to ask you, what was some of, I guess, your process in looking for people, especially like later on when you were doing like profiles of some of the indie, especially the female developers. Uh, was it just something about them, like the development process, or just bringing more attention to them that you felt that they weren't getting attention because either they were indie developers or maybe because of that they were female developers or both, that you want to profile them when you were doing the articles for your site?
A little bit. I mean, what you touch on here is something that I don't get enough of a chance to clarify to people who either maybe are new to who I am, or maybe they're not, but they kind of have the wrong idea of why I put myself out there the way I do. The way I put myself out there, yes, it is to draw attention to myself, but just so that everything else I talk about gets more attention as well. I mean, we live in a society these days that is more interested in personalities than brand names. They're more interested in people than just generic, sites. I mean, I could call myself, pixelfart.com or whatever, and I'm just going to blend in. You know, I'm doing it different, and I'm doing that as a vehicle for anything else or anyone else that I talk about. So when I see people who have what I feel is, I guess, the bigger idea, the bigger picture, that they see whatever it is they're doing as possibly a bigger thing, kids and dreamers, people who have the desire but maybe don't have the eyes looking at them yet, or people that have a positive attitude, and to remember that video games are fun, they're entertaining, people who want to build and create and contribute, not people who want to tear down and destroy. Those are the types of things. So when I see somebody that shows that passion, that shows that spark, it's somebody that I want to help out and draw attention to if I can. And some cases I come away with those with new friendships. Sometimes I that gives somebody that opportunity, and it puts eyes on them that gives them a break somewhere. And so that's the kind of thing I want to look at, because it's not just, like I said, what I said before, with my logic of I don't see enough people, personalities you can point to and say that's a person that's in video gaming, that's a personality in it. So it's kind of putting those out there. When I do still write articles, which is just one facet of what I do, thank you for being one of the people that realizes that, is it's not just to create one personality, it's to point out that there's a bunch of people. I don't tell stories, I don't report on what these people are doing or whatever. I tell people's stories. I give them the platform to show that video gaming is pop culture. And these are the kids that grew up video gaming, and they didn't just disappear and get replaced by new kids. They're still in it. They still love it, and they're contributing to what they love right now.
And I think that's one of the things, is that maybe what happens with some of these sites, and that's one of the things that, we at Obsolete Gamer do. One of the things about us is that a lot of our articles are reposts, but we go and we look for a lot of sites that either are closed or are closing or don't get a lot of aren't updated a lot. And we asked, hey, if you're not posting a lot or not going to be posting a lot, can we repost like your old articles so we can see if we can help bring lights to it? And a lot of people are like, why? This isn't going to get you a lot of hits. This is, Google search engines are going to actually punish you. And it's like, that's not the point. The point is that these are actually interesting reviews, and we want to see if we can actually get people to see all these cool games that we love. And it's like, well, aren't you going to have 15 different Bubble Bobble reviews? And it's like, so if people like Bubble Bobble, maybe they'll like this lady's review and this gentleman's review and this kid from England's review and this guy from Africa's review. And like you said, if the person is interesting and you make a friend with this person, it's great to bring them together and to meet new people. And I think what happens is a lot of people either want to stay in it even as they get older, or sometimes, because of family, work, and just life, you have to bow out. But I wanted to ask you about reviews itself. There's been a lot of talk, especially like on social media, and like Reddit and stuff. I read that, especially like there's been controversy about reviews and review sites, especially when you have gigantic sites that just take over. and they'll give like almost any game, like 9 or 10, and the lowest any game will get, no matter how crappy it is, might be a 5 or 6. And I was just wondering, like, what has been your overall opinion about reviews? Is it even worth it, or is with video reviews and with all the information you can get on the internet, is it really even worth it looking and reading most of these mainstream reviews of new games coming out?
Well, to me, it's all kind of white noise at this point anyway. I mean, the reason I rarely review games or very rarely review any product is because there's already those major sites. They're already doing it. I don't really see the point in reviewing a lot of these games. Now, I'll put a caveat to that. When a company's nice enough to send me a copy of something, like, it's funny. I last year, no sooner did I knock the idea of reviewing the new Call of Duty, because it's Call of Duty, right? Then the next day, the FedEx guy brings me a review copy of Call of Duty. And so they were nice enough to send me a copy. I'm going to do a review, but I did it my way, and I kind of stirred the pot a little bit. I was afraid they'd get mad that they didn't. They actually liked it. I compared Call of Duty to like the McDonald's of video gaming. You know what you're going to get. Some people like it. Some people don't. Some people don't like it, but they go there anyway. That's what this is. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Let's move on with our lives. But when I do, usually maybe it's like an indie game or something that maybe doesn't get a lot of attention because those big sites aren't doing that. But I think that this is part of the problem of what I'm talking about as well, about video gaming stuff being kind of stuck in a bubble. Is these websites, their only source of revenue are things like click-throughs and sponsors and banner ads and that sort of thing. That's their only source of revenue. They're kind of stuck in this thing where they don't have multiple revenue streams. They have just this one or two. So they don't want to risk pissing off the people who are paying their bills. And I think, though, I don't blame them sometimes for wanting to be like, okay, this game really stinks, but we're going to give it a middle road review here. So we don't want to do the more mainstream thing. So they kind of get stuck in this vicious circle. And there's been a lot of talk, really more accusation and assumption lately about the integrity of some of these sites, this and that. Unless you've been on the inside of something like that, and they don't, they're accusing from the cheap seats. It's armchair quarterbacking. They don't know what it's like unless they're in there. I'm sure that there's occasions where that happens, but I know from my seat, when I do get sent free stuff or whatever, I've never been encouraged to give anything any kind of good or bad review. Just a humble request to review it, and in fact, even sometimes a note with it that says to give my honest opinion of it. The complete opposite of what it is. But, I think it's somewhat futile to do reviews unless you do work for Kotaku or Polygon or IGN or something, because they've already done it. Those are the places people are going to go. Those are the places people are going to go look at that. All right? It'd be like you don't see people on a WordPress blog giving updates on NFL scores. No one's going to go there for that. They're going to go to ESPN for that. They're going to go to the local station for that. Same thing with this. I think that if reviews became maybe a little bit less of the way people go, ooh, I can make some money doing this, or ooh, I can get free games, maybe we'd have a little better content, and maybe the problem would kind of correct itself after a little while.
And that's the thing. You end up then, and that's the thing that I wonder. If these large sites, though, if they already are, the top, or at least, they're going to have some competition, why do they still have to do things like have, clickbait, where they have to either provide salacious headlines or slightly misleading, or just come out with these stories that are not really even stories? You would expect that from the smaller blogs, but yet these guys are putting out these these stories and articles that you would think the up and comers would have to do.
Well,
It's almost everyone has to become almost like the TMZs, because that's just a way of the internet now.
well, yeah, but they do it because it works. I mean, it's like TMZ. You can't deny that TMZ doesn't make a lot of money. But even they have more than one revenue stream. They don't just rely on click-throughs to their website. They got a syndicated TV show. They get rights fees from other things. They have a good like merch stream. They have other like sub brands. You know, these video game sites aren't doing that. And I think some of it, I've actually been told with people before, like when G4 went belly up. I know some reasons. I had friends there. I know some reasons why that happened that aren't really commonplace out there. But a lot of people, I've actually heard people sit there and say like, "Well, you can get all your video game stuff on the internet now." So that's why it failed, and that's what they think. They think the internet is the central hub of all that. I completely disagree, because if that was true, you wouldn't have television movie critics, you wouldn't have ESPN, you wouldn't have CNN, you wouldn't have any of that sort of stuff. It wouldn't exist, because you get all that stuff on the internet too. And let's not forget that almost 30% of this country still doesn't use the internet. So you can't tell me that either. The reason it failed is, you know, one of the reasons why is I don't think they were doing it right. I think there's still room for something like that. But again, these gaming sites, a lot of them, even the big ones, they think this is what works. This is the way you do this. It's stuck in this permanent rut that, I don't know, best thing I can describe it to, I can compare it to, I think you'll understand the analogy I got here. I've been watching a lot on WWE Network recently. I've been doing the Monday Night War recap, you know, the series that's going back and looking at that. And one of the things it talks about early on is how professional wrestling had got stuck in this rut, where it was just recycling the same stuff, the same stuff, the same stuff. People weren't buying it anymore, but they just kept doing it. It wasn't until Nitro came along and did things so differently that it shook it all up and everything had to change. You got this big thing in there. That's where these video game sites are, in my opinion. That's where they are. Is they're caught. They're caught in that because they think this is how you do things. This is the way it works. Let's not rock the boat. Let's not try to do anything innovative. Let's not try to get out of this. And that's what you got. So you have a million, I'm guessing, you know, internet journalists and this and that or whatever out there, and maybe you know, a dozen or maybe a couple of dozen that anyone ever actually reads or watches, because they're kind of this caught in this rut. Nobody wants to do the one that does different, and I can kind of understand why. You know, when my primary thing was writing. You know, like I said, it's still a facet of what I do, but I've expanded to other forms of media as well. A lot more lucrative opportunities in that, by the way. But when I would do that, when I'd put out a story about a new world record on Donkey Kong or whatever, that wasn't paying my bills. I don't know whose bills that people think they were paying, but that stuff, even if it blew up big, might give me one day of big traffic. It's over with. Most of these women in gaming features, again, they're not exactly huge draws. They're kind of more like a long-term thing to give this person some exposure, get this person's story out there, break some stereotypes. You know, feature a woman in the video game space without having to mention that she's a woman every 5 minutes. You know, but that's not where I don't really get much out of that financially. And, you know, so I can understand people don't want to rock that boat. They don't want to shake that up because when they try that, it doesn't get that. And let's face it, they're running a business, right? I recently got told by a TV producer, all right, something I did, got some reaction. I was like, well, was it good or bad? He's like, doesn't matter if it's good or bad. We got reaction. They don't care why they watched, why they reacted. They don't care. All that matters in movies, doesn't matter if the movie's any good. Did the movie make money? Yes or no? Doesn't matter if this TV show is any good. Does the TV show make money? Yes or no? Is this musician any good? Who cares? Do they make money or not? Same thing with those. They're there. They're running a business. They've got to try and make money. And that's part of the problem, because I'm not saying making money is a problem. I'm not going to ever be one of the people that acts that way. They got to earn a living. It's great to earn a living talking about what you got to talk about, but something's got to come in with the resources and or the guts to really just shake it up, change it, fix it, do something different.
And is that a problem? Because what happens with a lot of these articles is that you see a lot of these people go straight to the comments, and there's even been, you know, a lot of research done that more and more people, especially the younger people, are going directly from headline to comment section and not even reading the article. So they're getting so many of their hits from people commenting, and this almost pretty much intertwines with what we were talking about like how gamers will just attack each other or want to just flame. And maybe that's why these articles will work well because, hey, as soon as you talk about X game or a DLC, just go directly to comments and flame each other, and that's all your hits. They didn't even read the article. But hey, look, let's flame for 5,000 comment posts, and there you go. That's all the hits you need.
Well, some of those people, yeah, in some cases that's a case, and in some cases I think people just do it because they don't have anything else to do. Some people do it because that's the only platform they have. I mean, I called it out yesterday. I mean, a lot of people are doing the social media comments and the flaming and stuff like that of people like Zoe Quinn and the old whatever they think happened there or didn't happen there or whatever. And they're saying, oh, well, they're doing it in the sake of, well, gaming journalism needs to be this or be that or whatever. That's what they're doing to justify it. And I kind of put a thing out there that didn't speak to either side of that whole thing, but said this: when I didn't like what I saw and what was passing for games media, I went and did my own thing myself. I didn't tell other people how they needed to do it. If I didn't like it, I didn't like it. Okay, I don't like how this, and this is being done. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to make my own thing. I'm going to do my own thing my way. I'm going to do it the way I think needs to be done, the way that I think will work. And I wish more people would do that. I also wish more people, if they get so up in arms, it's amazing to me that there'll be more tweets to a response from Phil Fish than there will be when a Fox News anchor says something like violent video games should have a registry list. Or, when a radio talk show host like Glenn Beck calls video gamers losers, or when a congressman or a representative somewhere tries to implement a tax or a regulatory bill on video games based on nothing but their own opinions and what they've heard from scant research, they're silent. They don't go after those people. They ignore that. Sometimes they even get on me like, we'll ignore those people. They don't know what they're talking about. It's like, that's the problem. Those are the people that have the powerful voices. They don't know what they're talking about. What happens when one of these things passes? What happens when one of these stores stops carrying the games we want to play because of some bogus news report that everyone ignored because they were too busy yelling about Anita Sarkeesian's latest opinion piece? You know what I'm saying? I mean, let's focus on what is important and what isn't. And, if you're going to be an activist or whatever, do something. Join the Video Game Voters Network. Write to your politicians if they don't agree with how things are going on video gaming. Learn the history of the industry, not just the history that you lived through, instead of doing the flame bait type of thing. But you're right, that is where a lot of that stuff gets. And it's like, I don't know. There's some that don't moderate at all because they're greedy for those hits. And those are the ones I don't respect.
And the problem is that I remember there was a debate. I think it was when they were talking about the latest, not the one that's being released, of course, but the previous Arkham game, where they were talking about they were not going to work on the bugs anymore, and they were working on the next download content. And there were still a lot of people that were having game crashing bugs. Now, it wasn't everybody. There was a large segment that no longer had any bugs with the game, but there was a substantial group of people that were still having, game crashing bugs. And people were upset, and they were saying, how do you not have any team? Because it didn't say, they were still working on it and that, it was delayed or something. They basically said, we're not working on it anymore. That whole team is working on downloaded content. So there was a group that was upset and was saying, how could you do this to gamers? But they were shouted down by people that basically said, shut up, who cares? Our game works, we don't care. And it's like, obviously in any debate, you're going to have selfish people. That's America. That's anywhere in the world. But it's kind of sad that you can't even get people to realize that if you take that attitude, especially since it's clear that the majority did not have those issues, that the company knows that, hey, we don't have to fix things. I mean, I've worked at large companies, and they do listen to this, and they know if the majority is not yelling, they're not going to listen to the minority. So it's true. There's just, people really need to get together And companies do listen, and they realize that if gamers are not going to unite, and we spend so much time flaming each other as it is, there is no reason to listen to us. There's not, and they're not if we're not going to organize. It's just like in politics, they as much times as people make fun of France for like running from wars and all that stupid stuff. When a lot of times when the French people get together and protest, the government listens. When we get together and protest, the government doesn't listen. Maybe in like Ferguson and those type of things, you might get some listening in those neighborhoods, but for the most part, the government isn't going to fear when we get together and protest because they realize that within a few weeks, the press is going to go away. And with gaming, it's even worse because they know that we're not going to unite, and we need to change that.
Well, you absolutely, bless you for being one of the people that realizes that. I can take my own example with I have a very small but very vocal group of critics that for whatever reason, even though they block me, they keep looking at everything I do and say. And hey, you know what? If they don't like how I do things, fine. That's their right to. It's even their right to voice it, although when they start talking about things on a personal level or whatever, that's too far, and that's where I have a problem with them. But the point is, they're so busy griping about it. Like I said, I showed up on that ABC affiliate last year. All right? Everybody that isn't a critic of me that watched that thinks I won that debate with that psychology expert. It was a short debate or whatever. I'm pretty confident I could have won even longer. It didn't matter how long it was. They think I came out looking stronger than her side of the argument, right? Love me, hate me, whatever. You just had someone in video gaming go on live TV and debate a psychology expert about violent video games and come out on top. But they're so busy disliking me that they decided to hate on it anyway. It's like from my seat, are there people in gaming I dislike? Yeah, there's one of my vocal critics the other day. Got a front page story on a newspaper somewhere. People were coming like, oh, well, look at this or whatever. I'm like, good for him. Yeah, I'd rather him fall into an open manhole than ever meet him in person. But he got a front page newspaper article in his hometown about something he did in video games. Great. More power to him. I have no problem with that. Just because I don't like him personally doesn't mean I can't respect that. I wish more people would look at that sort of thing. I wish more people would do that sort of thing. But another thing, too, is something that along the lines of this is people forget. One of the most appalling things that didn't really catch on about the Zoe Quinn thing was Adam Sessler standing up. Adam Sessler spoke out against how she was being treated and what people were saying to her and stuff like that, right? And there were people running down Adam Sessler for doing that. This is a guy who was standing up and defending the video game industry when most of those people were still in diapers. This is a person who went on live TV and made Jack Thompson look like a jackass on live television. Standing up for the video game industry, that guy, keeping tabs on all that, doing everything he could to have all of gaming's back. And because he expressed one opinion that might be different from some of them, they put him through the shredder. That's shameful. That's terrible. You're not going to agree with anybody 100% of the time. But that guy has done more for them than any of the people yelling back at him have, than probably the collective of those people yelling back at him. It's like, look, you don't have to like what he had to say there, but man, respect his whole body of work, respect what he's done for you. Because without a voice like that, we might have had a couple of laws passed, or Jack Thompson might still be a pain in our butts. We don't know that sort of thing for sure, but yeah, man, it's like get behind some people. You don't have to like the person you're standing next to. If you're fighting the same fight that they are, instead of bickering about who is going to lead the charge, just get together and then go. If you want to lead the charge in your own way, then do it. It is much like politics, because nowadays you elected to a 4-year term, you spend a year and a half doing any work, and then you spend the rest of your term fighting to keep your job for the next term, and everybody else wants to fight to keep their job. They're all worried about being reelected and not actually doing anything that betters the whole of the population. Video gaming is doing the exact same thing, only they think that, some people still think that it's okay to use certain, sexist and racist terms, and that pwn doesn't sound like a goofy thing when you say it out loud. But it's the same type of thing. You don't have a united front. You don't have that. And what you're talking about, too, going even a little further back, as far as bug fixes, game crashing bugs, that sort of thing, they don't know how good they have it that anybody get that stuff fixed. Back when I was a kid, if you did game crashing bugs, that stuff was never fixed. You just had to avoid doing that thing. So, be lucky that you live in an era where at least some people can get something like that fixed.
Oh yeah, back in the day, yeah, just the cartridge.
Oh yeah, there were things that you could do on certain games for pretty much any platform that might freeze it or get it to a crash screen or whatever. I mean, sometimes you had to go really deep into a game or whatever. Sometimes you could trigger it accidentally. Guess what? They never got fixed. That's what it was like.
I remember having a friend of mine. He was telling me about how his cousin was complaining because he forgot to save after he beat a boss and he lost like an hour and a half of work and he was all upset. I'm like, man, I remember playing the original Zelda and I was like right before I think Ganon or something like that, like right before the last castle to go you fight Ganon. And I went to I lived in Chicago at the time and I went to Florida and I went through the X-ray scanner just like I always do.
Oh no.
I get to Florida, I put in my NES, the original NES, load it up and it's blank. And I'm like, oh my God, why isn't it not working? Where's my save? I'm looking, reload it, blow on it, and do all the tricks and it doesn't work. So I finally called the number in the back. Turns out that if it goes through the X-ray scanner, it wipes the little memory thing that was built into the cartridge that actually saved the game. Of course, I didn't know this. I'm a kid. And
well,
so I lost everything. Not an hour, several days of work. So that's pain.
Or go back to realizing that you left a letter out of writing with that Metroid code you wrote down. You left the letter out by accident when you wrote it down, and you don't know where you left the letter out. So I mean, you could spend all day trying to try every other letter and see if it takes you back there, or just accept the fact you screwed up. I mean, to even be able to save a game again. Look how good you have it.
Definitely. Speaking of just people not getting gamers or taking advantage of them, one of the things, and I've asked other people that I've talked to before, and that's one of the great things. One of the reasons why we started Obsolete Gamer, and why I really want to interview people is because I always want to ask people about different things I've seen. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the show Entourage, but there was a small part, but it's just one of the things that kind of cement what I've seen before. But basically, one of the main character, Vince, he was playing Aquaman, and he goes to Comic-Con. And he basically, when they're telling him that he's going to go there to promote promote the movie, he basically is like, oh my God, Comic-Con, it's full of nerds, it's terrible. And basically all the other people besides Drama is like, oh my God, this is terrible, it's the worst thing in the world. And Drama is really the only person like, oh, this is great, these are great people, this is going to be my bread and butter. And look, I've been to conventions, I've seen, like I said, the bad side of gamers. But at the same time, I just think that if you know that you're going to be going to a place that is going to be making a lot of money for you, especially if a lot of what your career is, like if you're a voice actor, or a lot of what you're doing is revolve around gaming, can you at least try and pretend, at least when a camera's on you or when you're being interviewed, as if you care? Because at least when I interview a lot of people that are voice actors or do video game stuff, they'll at least be like, hey, you know what, when I go to these conventions, I like being around gamers, at least the respectful ones. But then you hear so many stories about these people that are making millions, off of gaming, but they hate conventions, they hate talking to gamer fans, they disrespect us at every turn, and it's like, really? Not even a drop of respect? I mean, that's really so bad. It's like, why does it have to be that way?
Well, and I mean, I think you do hit a nail on the head. Actually, I have a story. I won't name names. but from one of the events I did this past year, where there was a pretty big YouTube personality who was at this convention, and yet only showed up to do their panels and at their time at the autograph session. Now, if that was like Angelina Jolie or Katy Perry or something, so a celebrity, an actual celebrity, I could understand. You're not going to want to walk around amongst the people. You kind of can't. We're talking about a YouTube celebrity here. We're talking about somebody that, could walk right by even other people, whatever. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. But they couldn't be bothered to show up except for a couple of times. That same event, I had a lot of downtime at that event, which doesn't happen too often. You couldn't get me off that floor unless I was hungry, and I had to go get something to eat. I spent as much time as I could walking around, talking to people, putting faces to names of people I've met online, that sort of thing. Pictures, whatever people wanted to do. Because I mean, it's again, no one's, I have yet to have paparazzi chase me down. I have no delusions about where I am here. I'm not going to get into an Oscar party. Neither is the guy that was acting like that, and so yeah, I mean, it's like, why, if you're not going to be part of the actual convention, why do that? Why act like you're, a celebrity or a star? Get over yourself. There's no gaming celebrities yet. It's not there. Maybe someday it'll happen, but until I see, Cliffy B on the cover of People or something, we're not there. So quit trying to act like it, and quit trying to act like this is a thing, because like you nailed it as far as these people are your bread and butter. And these people need to feel connected to you. If they came to see you at that event, they already feel connected to you. They already like your work. Keep it that way.
Now,
Interact with them.
do you feel like sometimes like people who started off maybe in gaming, or I guess what you would call in the geek culture, and then kind of made, maybe not jump, but at least kind of like climb a few steps up into what would be the mainstream, maybe movies, television, but kind of then kind of turn their back, because there are a couple of cases of that. Not naming names, but there's a couple of where gamers at least feel that way. Have you seen that where some gamer said, "Hey, that person used to be on this or was affiliated with gaming," or maybe they felt they never really were a gamer, but they kind of use that as a stepping stone or a step ladder, and then now they're like, "Oh, I'm not really was a gamer. That was like something, it was a one night stand thing."
Well, first of all, anybody, and I get accused of this by some critics, but anybody who uses video gaming as a stepping stone is a fool. There's not enough of a stepping stone there, all right? The lingerie bowl, the puppy bowl, the Nathan's hot dog eating contest, they all get more mainstream attention than a year's worth of video game news. Let's be honest. Let's be real. Let's get down to earth and figure out what this is. So if someone's connected to gaming, there's not a whole lot of money in doing this personality thing or whatever. And it's not like, like G4 was around or whatever. It's not like a lot of those people were, living in multi-million-dollar mansions here or something. Let's be real. Let's get down to earth on this. That's, if they're talking about gaming, it's probably because it's something they like. But again, those are people. I guess I could compare it to, you have some little garage band that plays in dive bars and stuff like that, and they start gaining a following, and it gets bigger and bigger, and then they sign a major record label, and then suddenly people start going, "Boo! How dare you? Whatever. You should be down here. How dare you sell out like that and become this big thing?" They kind of forget those people aren't running a charity. They're probably fans of things like food and shelter and things like that. They probably want that sort of stuff, and that they worked hard to get that grade. So if somebody has an opportunity to jump up to another plane and do something like that, and they're making more money doing that, maybe they don't talk about games as much as they used to. Doesn't mean they don't like them. It might just mean that they're busy doing what they do for a living. And that's fine. That's great. It doesn't mean that it has to be some ulterior motive or some little thing. Be happy for them. I see this a lot. I was very disappointed recently. I'll flat out say it right here. Maybe they'll hear it, maybe they won't. But there's a whole community around Donkey Kong. They still think it's 2007 and the King of Kong is still in its 6-month window of popularity. That's all they talk about all day, and then they celebrate each other, which is wonderful that they celebrate each other. But Steve Wiebe, right, the guy that they owe all that buzz to, right, the most popular of the bunch, he is going to be in Pixels, that Adam Sandler movie. There's pictures of him on set and with the stars. None of them care. They don't talk about it. They don't share it. They don't celebrate it. They don't care. That's a big deal. That should be one of the biggest things they had to talk about. Celebrate that. That's a good deal, because you know what? That might be them next time down the road. They might have an opportunity to do something bigger somewhere. Celebrate it. I don't see enough of that. So, I think it's great that if someone who used to be a G4 star has gone off and become a successful television star, or successful with a show that has nothing to do with gaming or anything like that, more power to them. That's fantastic. It doesn't have to be about video gaming 100% of the time. I got crapped on by some people for showing up on Frankenfood on Spike. It's not gaming. Who cares? 700,000 people watched me on that show. I don't care if it was gaming or not. It was an opportunity to get out in some new eyes and, I don't know, have a little thing called fun. It didn't mean I turned my back on anything or abandoned anything. It was one thing I did. Big deal. Get over it. It can't be video gaming all the time. It doesn't mean someone turned their back on it. It doesn't mean that someone forgot what it was. And it just seems like there's this thing in general where people, at least attached to gaming, they hate success. I don't know why it is when someone has any. I don't think you see that anywhere else. I don't think anyone accuses Michael Strahan of abandoning football.
I was just about to say that. Like, are you gonna get mad at him for showing up on, Kelly and Ripa, on the morning shows?
Yeah, he's pulling down some good ratings up there right now. I don't think any NFL players are sitting around going, "Well, he's not football anymore." They're happy for him. Even if they're the guys he used to knock into the dirt, they're happy for him. He's managed to parlay that into something else. That's great. That doesn't mean he stopped loving football. It doesn't mean he used football as a platform or anything like that. They're happy for him. Maybe video gaming needs to start acting like that more often.
And if anything, then, if nothing else, even if they're not walking around saying, I used to play video games, I was this and that, you can say, hey, that person used to be on G4, that person used to do this person used to do that, and now they're here too. That guy came from our community, and you can be happy for that way.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I mean, if anything, I look at what I'm doing. Am I still video game focused? Yeah, but I recently kind of tweaked the brand a little bit for a couple of reasons, but one of them is it opens up the envelope. Who knows what opportunities could come of that? I'm still video game centric. I'm still video game focused. I've had at least one running website at all times based on video games since 1998. And I don't see that changing in the future. But if it does, it doesn't mean I suddenly stopped liking video games. In fact, if anything, it means I probably am making a better living doing that than I was doing this. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to do that. Again, just we want these sorts of things. We want these people out there. We want people attached to video gaming to expand their horizons and become multimedia people. That's a good thing. And everything else has it. Professional wrestling has it. I mean, Chris Jericho, he's not just a wrestler. He's a musician. He's a television host. He's a radio jock. Good for him. Good for him, because he can't do the stuff in the ring forever, man. Hell, The Rock makes more money off one movie than he would have made wrestling the entire time. Doesn't mean that he abandoned it or that he forgot about it, that he never loved it. He just likes, I don't know, making a better living. Doesn't everybody?
Definitely.
Just because you love video games doesn't mean this isn't some religious thing. You don't have to commit to living your life in squalor. If you have an opportunity, take it. And Godspeed anyone that does, man.
Oh yeah, definitely. I saw that you were involved in a program that was dealt with anti-bullying, and I didn't get to see exactly what it was, but I wanted to ask you about something related to that. what would you say? Would you say that what would be the difference between the type of bullying that you would see maybe back in the day, um, that you would witness before the internet, that you would witness like in a school where someone would pick on you physically, verbally? That would be like the first one. The second one would be the kind of internet bullying that you've seen talked about, where someone, make a website about you or post pictures or just taunt you, every day, social media, things like that. That would be two. And then the third one would be the kind of taunting that might happen within a game community, because you may log into a game like, let's say a MOBA, where someone is just constantly telling you suck, and you log in. So yeah, they don't know your actual name, but they're taunting you, and maybe you're frustrated because you're getting your butt kicked too. So that would be three. What would you say? Like, do you say those three things could have a correlation, or are they completely different because the other two are more personal and they're more attached to your actual name, your physical self?
Well, the thing is, I mean, I was bullied growing up, which is why, that anti-bullying thing is actually taking place tomorrow on the 30th, down here in Fort Worth, Texas. I was glad to be asked to participate and to go do it. I was bullied hardcore as a kid, ironically, for liking video games, a lot of the time. Kind of funny how things turn out. But the thing is, back then, is yeah, I'd be bullied in school. I'd be bullied after school. When I got home, I had the evenings, and I had the weekends, and I had the summer vacation and spring break, Christmas break, and all that stuff. That was my break. I could get away from it. I could escape it. Nowadays, we live in this 24/7 connected world. And I can't imagine being a kid, a young, vulnerable child these days, unable to escape that sort of thing, unable to get away from that sort of thing, never knowing how a bully might record you on their cell phone or take pictures. They could put up websites, they could go with social media, they could text you, all these different anonymous ways of doing it. That's got to be impossibly tough. And I know some of the stuff like my harshest critics try and put me through is like direct parallel, where it's like, man, this is reminding me of what someone did to me in the 6th grade, which is kind of pathetic on their end. But it doesn't affect me as an adult like it did as a kid. I think that's a case with most people. But it does affect people. It affects anybody to some degree. Everyone's human. And I think the anonymity is a big part of it. I saw an article this morning where somebody was kind of being snarky. That's why I kind of laughed about it. And they were like, hey, we're at PAX Prime. Where are all the a-holes? It's like, I've been here a whole day, and I haven't heard any heated arguments about which Call of Duty is best or worst, or about sexism or indie games or anything else. What's going on? They're kind of pointing out that, people go on, they'll go to a keyboard and they'll do that sort of thing, but they won't go to a live event. They don't behave that way there. And I think that's absolutely true, because some of the same people. The case is that there's the anonymity. They think, okay, I can get behind a keyboard and we can do this and that sort of thing. And, so I think that's part of it. I think it's kind of like the coward's way of having their voice. And maybe even a generation that feels entitled to have a voice, and they don't use their free speech rights responsibly. The other thing is, I think some people get so caught up in it that they forget or even fail to realize that there's a human being on the other side of that. They laugh and get a kick out of dishing it out, but if they get something back, they get all mad, they get hurt, whatever. It's like, you kind of had it coming. They forget that's a person over on the other side. There's people on the other side. And maybe they don't like that. Maybe they don't go that same way with you. Maybe you need to rethink that, because they're, and I think that's a big part of it. I think some of it's a generational thing. I don't think parents are paying enough attention to kids when they're going online and what they're doing on there. I'm not saying parents need to hover over and police everything their kids do, but I know I do. Well, my kids watched me play a game of Madden last night, and how I thanked the guy after the game was over, told him a good game, and and the guy started trash talking or whatever, I muted him. That sort of thing. It's like trying to teach them, like, look, just because you're on a headset or whatever, don't get caught up in that. It's just a game. It's just fun.
Yeah, I think that what happens is that I remember starting with like AOL, even like Prodigy back in the day, people were afraid to even say certain things because they were like, I don't know if I should say this. I don't know if I should say that. And I remember when people they got the kick scripts in AOL, and they would pretend like they were real hackers and they would kick people. And then slowly people would start to, say things and attack people. And now it's gotten to the point where it's just out of control. And it's bad enough that people attack and say these things, but now you see sites that are attaching your Facebook. And what really surprises me is that people will especially when it comes to politics, because it's one thing with gamers and stuff. But what really surprises me is that people will go on like Huffington Post or something, and they'll post things like, I want to stab this congressman, and then you'll go to their Facebook page and they have a
Yeah.
picture of they're holding their daughter, and I'm like, you just talked about stabbing a congressman, and now you have a picture holding your daughter. How do you attach those two together? And it's like people, I
Well,
don't like. Do they even realize what they're doing? Do they understand that maybe your next boss, maybe you have a job now, but your next boss may look at that and attach the two? And do kids realize that if you do this, like I worked at Alienware. When we hired people, we would look at their Facebook page, and yeah, we weren't super anal, but if you had like racist stuff, we won't hire you. And people need to realize that you may be kind of anonymous, but not totally.
well,
Not
I
even.
think some people too use it as an outlet. There was, which I think is a mistake. There was a story a couple months back about a wife that found, her husband left his Facebook logged on, and she sat down to use a computer and took a look and saw the things that he was saying to other people, and he was harassing. He was this nasty, nasty, nasty troll, right? And he admitted to it, and he's saying something like, it was an outlet. He'd come home at a bad day, and that's how he blew off steam. And it's like, man, that's what I was talking about before. It's like, you don't forget there's human beings over there. Me, if I'm angry, if I'm upset at the world, I get as far away from social media as I can. I didn't always do that. I used to rant online too at times. Realize no good comes of it. If I'm having a bad day, I'll go get a 6-pack of beer, or I'll go for a walk around the block, or I'll watch a show that I enjoy, or God forsake, I'll play a video game. You know, I'll put the phone far, far away from me and turn that computer off. And I don't think some people do that. I think some people, they're mad at the world, or they decide to be mad at the world, and they say things like that, and they don't realize that, hey, maybe they don't like that reporter. That's go a little far. And that can be hurtful to a thing. Plus, sometimes people take that seriously. Some people, it's just talk, but then you get your true crazies that might actually be capable of doing that sort of thing. And so it's this constant thing. I don't understand it. I'll never understand it, and sometimes it makes me reluctant to put some things out, but I do it anyway because I'm not going to let that sort of thing deter what I think needs to be out there.
Okay, so last take, because I saw you talking about it, so I had to get this take. Your take on the Twitch, Google, Amazon. I need to know like what overall. I mean, because I've been you know into Twitch for a while, seeing how the streaming go, and I first heard that Google would be purchasing it, and then you hear that Amazon is going to be the one, or at least looks like they're going to be the one to be purchasing it. Overall, what do you think of how Twitch is done with the whole streaming of gaming, and how it just revolutionized people watching gameplay, and maybe even how it's changed how people look at reviews, because people may just look at that instead of even looking at a review, and what Amazon's move overtaking Google and what they might do with that gaming channel, streaming channel.
Well, I proof positive, absolutely 100%, would put every pint of blood on my body on the line, positive that Google was not interested in Twitch because of anything to do with video games. They have tried to do their own live stream thing a few times. YouTube would have live streams with things like WWE and music concerts and stuff like that at times. didn't take. People didn't watch them. People didn't think of YouTube as a place where you go do that. So I think that's why they were interested in Twitch, not because of video games, because you have a big user base, a recognized name that's available on all these devices. It's available in your game consoles. That's what they wanted to do to replace it. Kind of like eBay. Years ago, probably before some people were even using eBay, they had their own in-house little payment system, and then there's PayPal over here, an independent company. More people were using PayPal than eBay's in-house system. So eBay just bought PayPal and replace their in-house system with it, because if you can't beat them, buy them. That's what big companies do, and I think that's what Google's intention was. So I'm kind of glad in that note that they didn't get it, but I'm not 100% convinced Amazon didn't get it for the exact same reasons. I'm pretty positive, in fact, that they're looking at this as more than just a potential platform for video game streaming. That they picked it up because it's established and it's got the user base. It avoids all the startup costs of trying to create a competition or create their own version that may or may not take. But I think they're going to be better for those that do stream things on Twitch, video game things on Twitch. I don't think they're going to be as cold to the video game side of that as Google Tube, as I call it, would have been. I'm glad that they got it, or appear to be getting it instead, because I don't think it's going to throw everything on their ear as far as the video game side of things. Do I think it'll remain 100% untouched like it is right now? Absolutely not. But I think there's plenty of room for both. I think it may even benefit the best video game streamers to have content streaming alongside other forms of entertainment. I think that it might actually benefit them, might benefit all of us. And I think Amazon is going to treat that better. Some people I know that work at Twitch who can't really give details, of course. I can tell you that they were smiling and they were happy when the Amazon news came down. I didn't see that reaction when the Google news was out there. So I think they got what they like to hear out of that. That they're going to still Twitch is still going to be recognizable as Twitch, but I don't think that means it's going to stay exactly what it is. Whatever ends up happening to it, Amazon bought it with a plan already in mind. What that plan is, I don't know. Amazon's always looking years ahead, so I guess we're all going to find out together exactly what they plan to do when it happens.
Okay. All right, a little goofy question real quick then. If you had only one classic game that you could play, like let's say you were stuck in a room and like let's say a game would only have one classic game on it, which one would it be?
Well, I get asked questions like that a lot, and it's hard because about 6 or 7 or 8 different games come to mind, at all times. I mean, so.
All right, how about top 5 then?
What's that?
What about top 5? Is that easier?
Top 5. I'll list 5. The order might change depending on what day you ask me. I mean, one would have to be the original Pac-Man, because that was the first video game I ever played. You see one in the background right now. That game means something to me. Most of the time where I make any type of public appearance or whatever thing, I'll have a Pac-Man on me somewhere, kind of as a tribute to that, because that's what hooked me. That's what started me. That's my Steamboat Willie for this whole thing. So that would always have to be one of them. Maybe the original Super Mario Brothers would be in there, because I just never get tired of playing that. Tetris would have to be in there. Definitely, again, absolute just timeless thing. That anyone can play, anyone that can have fun playing Tetris. I mean, come on, really. Load Runner. That's something that's like some people aren't going to know what the hell that is, but and I don't mean an NES version or one of the later ones. Although I think some of the PC Engine ones were actually really good. They're really obscure, but I think they're really good. I'm talking about the original one, either Commodore 64 or Apple II. They're pretty much the same game, just different color scheme. That's one of my all-time favorite games, and it's always stuck with me. It's always one that'll make me smile when I see it or whatever. Let's see, and then a fifth one, I'd probably have to go with just something like Galaga. Again, a game that I don't play as often as I used to. I used to be a huge fan of it. I actually stopped playing it as often as I used to because I don't have time. It's a game I can get a lot of play out of that game on a quarter. I found that out earlier this year. I sat down to actually play a game of it for more than a few minutes, find out I could still roll the game. So I probably could have played that thing for hours on end, but I was hungry. And I just don't care about high scores like I used to. So I stopped at 1 million, or just under 1 million,
Nice.
just so I could sign my name in. So I mean, that would probably be the picks.
Awesome. So what's coming up next for you?
Well, of course, I got the anti-bullying thing tomorrow in Fort Worth, Texas. That's at Action Martial Arts in Fort Worth, Texas. I'm teaming with IHWE Wrestling. So it's kind of a return to wrestling in a way, I guess. They're going there to speak to the kids that attend there and anyone else that wants to. It's me. It's an old broadcast colleague of mine at XCW Wrestling. Former WWE superstar Charlie Haas is there. A bunch of other people. It's going to be an interesting thing. Next month, I'm doing Retropalooza, which is in Arlington, Texas. Not quite sure what to expect there yet, but it sounds like it's going to be a fun little time. And I'll be doing a panel there about the importance of preserving our video game history and the artifacts that are attached to it. It's not going to be a panel that people who like to gut classic arcade games to make memes and multicades are going to like. It's not something that people who cut up, existing NESs and NES cartridges to make custom jobs are going to like, but it's how I feel, because most of this stuff's already destroyed. It's already in a landfill. It's been long since destroyed, and it's up to us to preserve this stuff, and save it as is. Save the history of our thing. Ben Gold will be joining me for that, which was one of the original competitive gamers. And I have a potential third person yet that I'm not naming because I haven't got a yes or no yet, because this person's been traveling a lot. But it's a very notable name in the video game industry from a local studio that does a lot to do exactly that within their premises. And then I've already got a few things going for next year as well. Events. I've already confirmed some South by Southwest and stuff like that. And then a couple other movies and TV shows. World 1-1. That comes out in October, and I believe the NES Club is going to start doing the festival season right around that, and then go into a wide-scale release early next year. And hopefully, maybe, I filmed something for television at E3 that may make air by that point in time. I don't know. That's still out there. That's how that industry works. I probably won't know until just before it happens, honestly, but looking forward to that and a few other things that I can't disclose right now. But I got a lot of things going on like that. The term multimedia personality, it got changed to that for a reason. There's a lot more stuff going on behind the scenes on this end than out in the front, and some of the stuff I just can't talk about yet. But it relates with those other types of media, because that's where I'm trying to do more and more of, and I'm excited.
That is awesome. Well,
and I got an itchy eye. I don't know why.
Well, I love, one of the things I love is great conversations, and that is exactly what we had today. And I thank you very much for, spending this time with us. And I hope that, you'll come on, another time when you have some time and talk with us more. Because honestly, I could go on for hours and hours, but I know that you're busy. But I hope you'll, come back another time when you have some time.
Absolutely. There's always something I want to get off my chest. If there's one thing I can do, it's talk. So, so yeah, man. I mean, yeah, I just, say the word, and if I can make it happen, man, we'll do it.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me, man.
Anytime, and thank you guys for watching Obsolete Gamer.